The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
We don't usually do unboxing. We're not YouTubers in that way, are we, Kev? But Kev, literally, I was pressing the figurative big red button, and it went ding dong. So you've had a delivery, Kev. What's in the box?
I don't know.
Is it
do you know what?
It's an Amazon Basics thing, isn't it?
I don't know. It's basically...
What's in the box?
It doesn't have my name. It's got my address on it, but it doesn't have my name.
This is like the film Seven. What's in the box?
Open the box.
Open it. What?
Right, hang on. I'm just going to get my multi-tool out, which is the only gift that ever survived my first wedding. First marriage.
This better be good, Kev. This is the first ever unboxing we've done on the FujiCast.
The only thing I can think it is that thing that we talked about last week, but I'm not going to say it until I open it.
Well, the camera bag.
The McKinnon experience. Yeah. Hang on, hold on. I'm just going to flick my penknife up and down a bit.
You got to do some B-roll.
Hang on. I'm just going to go and boil some coffee whilst I ride a one-wheeler motorbike.
It's not a motorbike, Kev. It's a one-wheeler. It's just one wheel or a boosted board. Oh, blimey!
Get in there.
Yeah. I tell you what, McKinnon's unboxings are never
this is
very
anticipatory. This is a very apt delivery.
What is it?
Because I can reuse this box to send its old brother off to Wex.
What is it? What is it, Kev? What's in the box?
It's my GFX 100S. Hooray!
Oh my word! I can't believe you were stabbing into that box and you've got an expensive camera in there. Has it survived?
The FujiCast.
Is it okay, Kev? Is it in one piece?
It looks all right.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I've got some free padded bubble wrap as well. Is that nice?
There we go. It's toy day. Everybody likes a toy day, don't they?
Yeah.
What is this camera destined for, Kev? Usually
destined for great things.
I know, but usually you have a plan. It's going to be like you're sort of connecting with your.
Well, yeah. I mean, the reason why I wouldn't have got rid of the GFX 100, to be totally honest with you, I lost a whole load of money on that because the resale value of them is ridiculously low. But I'm just not using it. I'm not using it at all. It's too big to take anywhere. So my plan is, as we said last week, I've got that Amazon Basics bag.
Yep.
My plan is to have a GFX bag always ready. Spend a bit more time at the stables, just getting back in the swing of things, but using something a little bit more different.
So you're going to use it at the stables?
Yeah. I don't really take many pictures up there.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect place.
Yeah.
So I want to try and do some more stuff like that. Maybe get into some fine art equinery.
Blimey! Oh yeah, you did take that backdrop from me a couple of months ago.
I haven't done anything yet.
No.
So
it's a huge backdrop that you can use it's Jan Arnes Bertrand is the photographer I'm thinking about that does all those incredible pictures of not just the horses when he goes to the country shows in his motherland, France, when he does those amazing pictures of these prize bulls and huge boar and pigs, and there we go, Kev. That's what this is
listening,
for.
I'm still opening.
I know, I can tell. I hope they've put sustainable packaging in there.
It does. It actually says on the box, carbon neutral packaging.
Good.
Very nice. Well done, Fujifilm.
Glad to hear
there
it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm pleased about that. That's come just in time for...
What?
Well, for the rest of the day.
I was preparing for a moment then.
No, it's good timing because the box has come. I can send off the other stuff now to its new place.
Well, I don't think you can. You've ripped it apart by the sound of it. It was destroyed.
That was the thingy. That was the bubble wrap. I can reuse that.
Oh, well, there we go. There was a 4-minute unboxing there, Kev. Very exciting. Hey, move over, McKinnon.
Oh, it's a lot smaller than I thought.
Oh, what would you in terms of size of camera? Would you compare it to perhaps something like a DSLR? Or
I would say it's about. If you think of an XT3, it's about a little bit like an XT3.
Yeah.
But a little bit fatter with a much bigger hand grip and heavier. It's a good 50% smaller than the GFX 100.
Well, this is fantastic. This is fine then, isn't it? This is what you want for making documentary pictures.
Well, yeah, of course, there are downsides. There are things that the original GFX 100 has that this doesn't. But
such as
dual batteries, longer lasting batteries. The fact that it's got a vertical grip that you can use, the tilt swivel screen, all of that stuff. But, what can I do? The GFX 100, it made some beautiful pictures, but not enough to justify the amount of money I spent on it. Yeah. So it's going, and I'm replacing it with something that's a lot less expensive, but far more beautiful. Like the story of my life, that really.
And you don't care, do you?
No.
You don't attach yourself to old kit, do you? Really?
No, if it's not working for me, I do have some kind of, like proper kind of relationships with some of the cameras. Early ones or ones that I've got my name on serial numbers and things like that for various things.
X100 would definitely be one, the original one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'll keep all my X100s, but other than that, if it ain't, I'm also sending off an X Pro 2. Yeah. XT2, my original 18mm lens is going, a few other bits and pieces. All the stuff I don't use is going off to the new place. Bye-bye, camera, bye-bye.
Oh, Kev. It's saying, don't send me all that service I've done for you, pictures that I've made
the X Pro 2, actually, I'm not sure. They haven't offered me that much money for it because I graded it very low. But the GFX 100 is mint. And so they have given me a reasonably good price, but still a lot lower than I paid for it.
All we need now, though, Kev, is for your camera bag to arrive that we talked about last week. You've got the whole package.
I'll be ready. I'll be good to go.
I'm not sure. We're starting with a question that I'm not sure whether we've done this before, but because it's a subject that we do talk about from time to time. But Jay Griffer, who's one of our regular writers, message, not my expectation, but simply I'd like to pitch some ideas for your expert response. Stand by, Kev Expert, coming up. With Fujifilm having X-mount cine lenses, it seems like they're still lacking a camera body to really use it to its intended purpose. Side tangent, same criticism to the 200mm f2 lens that's built for action, wildlife, but lacks a body to use it properly. This leaves room for the, guess what, Kev? What camera? What do you think he's going to say?
XH2.
He is. Should it be built bigger? Let's say something like a Canon C200. We talked about the C200 before with all those benefits of audio ports. Or something like a Panasonic S1H, traditional larger DSLR body with an articulating screen. I don't know. I mean, the XH2 thing, are we ever going to get one, Kev? We talk about this, don't we?
I think it's rumoured, isn't it? Yeah. Usually when the rumours are kicking around, there's usually some truth in them. I think it's a little bit unfair to say that there's no wildlife cameras out there. I mean, if you look at, Alan's work and others, they're creating incredible wildlife photography with XT4s, XH1s. I think Alan even uses an XT3. I can't think of what else you would need for wildlife. Unless he's thinking about animal eye detection, which I always find a very peculiar thing to say. Animal eye detection.
Animal eye detection. That's worse than reception.
Yeah, I mean, the cine lenses, maybe they will. I have no idea about this at all, but just reading from the rumors and everything, my gut feeling is there will be two versions of the XH2, and one will have a smaller sensor, which will be better in low light and all that kind of stuff, and or smaller in terms of megapixels, I should say. Both be APS-C, I would have thought. And the other one will have less, but be better for filming and all that kind of stuff. So,
is it likely to be a camera that you would be interested in?
It depends. For filming, I've got a couple of filming gigs lined up soon, and what I would like is if and this I think is something that won't happen, but I would like it if they did create a variant of the XH2 that was dedicated to filming, that had proper onboard audio XLRs, unlimited. They called it a movie camera rather than a like the C100 or something, rather than a stills camera, so it's not limited to the 29 minutes or whatever, which is no longer the limit by the EU, it's the limit by the battery and the heat dissipation.
Just to remind me of that rule, because I never really latched on to there was something about you had to limit, it was to do with VAT, wasn't it? That you had to limit the amount of time that DSLRs, as it would have been there, were allowed to film for. Otherwise,
it had to be categorized either as a stills camera or a video recorder, and it was a tax reason by the EU. Yeah, absolutely. So if it was not a filming camera, it was limited to 29 minutes recording.
Yeah.
That's why all cameras are limited to that. But I think that regulation has gone away, whether that's because we're no longer in the EU or whether it's pan-European regulation.
I've got a feeling it went away before for all those people who say, look what you get if you leave the EU. You can now use your... No, I don't think it's anything to do with that, along with all the other...
But I think that there's issues in terms of heat dissipation and all that kind of stuff. So, I really don't know. And I mean, I'm more interested in the new sensor that will probably come with the H2, which will be X-Trans 5 then. 5, can you imagine that? People still say, autofocus needs to be better, or, they need animal eye detection and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yes, but only for the minority of people that I think need to shoot, 30, 40 frames per second and have pinpoint accuracy. So I'm thinking sports photographers, wildlife photographers for the animal eye detection, perhaps. Although myself personally, I'm not a wildlife photographer, so I don't know. Wedding photographer, there's this whole kind of movement to shoot 20, 30,000 frames at a wedding, just shoot the shit out of everything. That's not for me. I'm not saying that it's not for other people, but it's not for me. And so I don't know. I mean, personally, I know we're going off the topic a little bit here, but my ideal sensor, I'm happy with the frames per second. They could even drop the frames per second for me, but I'd like to be able to, shoot, and we're kind of talking about the physics of things now, shoot kind of in lower light, more stably, but, kind of better EVF, that kind of thing is the more important stuff to me. I'd like to see different crop overlay options in the viewfinder, that kind of stuff. Anyway, whatever. I don't know.
For the moment, you're just happy with the box that you've opened, by the sound.
I know. I'm still opening it as well. It's got little bags full of stuff.
In the background, I can hear all this.
I love these. Well, I don't understand. Right. So this is a Dear Fujifilm. Eco-friendly boxing, very good. Like all that, that's very good. However, I do not need 4 different plugs.
Oh.
I do not need a British plug, an American plug, a European plug, and I don't know what the other one is.
Yeah, but it would cost so much more to separate out the boxes to go to different regions. So,
Okay, well then they need to identify the difference in cost of doing that. Well, and the environmental impact cost.
Yes, I'm with you on it, but that must be the reason. They must have done their math on that already. Why is it math and not maths, by the way? I've never got that about the American math and maths thing. Do the math.
I don't know, actually, but you never hear Americans say mathematics.
Nope.
So maybe it's just because they never...
It's just a different way.
The elongated version of the word.
No, I know. Well, we're good at that, aren't we? Elongating stuff we don't need to. But I suspect that's the reason, Kev. They've done the mathematics on this, and they've thought... Well, separating all these boxes out for the sake of not having that plug there and that plug there and that plug there costs them more money. It has to be the only reason.
There are cleverer people than me who have made these decisions.
People with longer foreheads than us.
Yeah.
Right. Do you have a question, or do you want me to go for another one while you're still sorting out your box there? I
have a question.
Go on then.
Jason Good. He says, good morning from North Carolina, United States. Love listening to you guys and so much helpful content as I look at delving into the photography world even more. I recently saw a video clip that the wedding photographer was warning clients to basically not hire anybody that is not insured. What are your thoughts, and to what extent should one be insured? I understand it's a business and would probably be wise to be insured. Thanks for any feedback. And again, your great insights, discussions every week. Love it. And Jason's given his Instagram. By the way, if you do put your Instagram at the end of your comments, your questions, we will read them out. Yeah. Instagram.com/JSGERDT.
I know what you're going to say straight away with being insured and playing by the rules.
Yes, be insured.
Yeah. I mean, that's
if you ain't insured, don't talk to me.
But what about people that just want to do it at the weekend and, they don't want to be involved in... it's a slightly different conversation because it involves insurance for very good reason. But I was having a conversation a couple of weeks ago about drone photography. And I at one stage, I had my full commercial drone license so that I could get involved in it. But it was so expensive, Kev. The red tape was getting daft. Whilst also understanding that there is a safety aspect to it. The insurance, though, Kev, boof, through stop roof. And I can understand how some people cut corners. I didn't cut corners. I did it all by the books. But you can see why people do.
Yeah, I presume you can. But you can see why people steal from shops.
What?
If they need to. If they're really hungry and they've got no money, they're going to steal something from a shop, you know. Well, people do many things for different reasons, but it doesn't mean they're right. That's what I'm saying.
That's true. Kev, stop.
I think if you are, if you're being paid to do a job, such as a wedding photography, I'm not sure about the... I agree with you about the drone stuff, but I don't really have that kind of back knowledge. So,
well, at the moment I didn't have the insurance, Kev, I stopped doing it because
absolutely. So, stills photography. If you're being paid to do a job, you should absolutely be insured. Even if you're not being paid to do a job, and you are working at at a venue, even if you're just a friend or something, and they say, "Can you photograph my wedding?" as in the capacity of being the official photographer, then really you should think about short-term insurance. Because if you knock that Ming vase over, you are in a world of pain, you know, and your car breaks down on the way to the wedding and you can't get there. Your insurance will protect you. If you're not insured, you're in a world of pain. Anti-Maud falls over your camera bag. If you're insured, you're protected. If you're not, you're in a world of pain.
Well, Auntie Maud might, she might be kind, Auntie Maud. So I'm not taking you to the cleaners.
Perhaps.
I'm looking into your eyes, Kev Mullins.
Yeah,
I can see
exactly.
You have children and horses to feed.
Well, look, the thing is, I've been insured all the time I've been shooting. Yeah. And luckily, touch wood, fingers on everything, you know, I'm doing all the things I should be doing. I've never actually had to use them. No. So, in theory, I don't know, what is it, 450 quid a year? Is it? Maybe a bit more, I can't remember. Let's just say on average, it's 500 quid a year. I think
I pay £53 something a month for my
Right, let's go with your price, right? So 53 times 12, 636. Yeah. And I'm just going to go on the years I've been photographing, 13. So I've spent £8,268 on insurance.
Yeah.
And never used it.
But what about the day you might need to?
Exactly. So I'm an advocate for it. I think it's very important.
Yeah.
I do not think you should not use it.
I do remember being at a particular venue. Where is it? In Surrey, posh part of Surrey, and there were some curtains made by Anne Boleyn, and
Anne Boleyn made the curtains.
Yeah,
wow.
Get that, Kev? Was it Anne Boleyn? I think it was Anne. No, it was no Jane Austen. It's not.
That's very different.
Where is this story going, Neil? Maybe it was Jane Austen.
Anne Boleyn was beheaded by Henry VIII.
Yeah.
And Jane Austen was a Lake District author.
Yeah, he beheaded her because he hated those curtains. And it was curtains for her.
I can never close these curtains properly. Off with her head.
Whoever made these curtains, they were very, very famous. And there was a big sign by them that said, "Don't close these curtains." And I marched up the stairs with a couple when I was doing I think it was in the days not long after I'd been on a Jerry Guionis course, and he'd taught us about closing curtains, funneling light, and making these beautiful portraits, of which, of course, he's astonishingly good at doing, isn't he, Kev? And so in my I want to be like Jerry moment, I threw these curtains that have never been touched for years, apparently. I threw them together, and you heard this kind of noise as they both drew together, only to have the wedding coordinator appear just moments later, screaming at me about the historical significance of these curtains. Now imagine, Kev, if they'd have fallen apart in my hands. I don't think they'd have showed me the kind side, would they? They'd have probably taken me and the curtains to the cleaners.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I reckon they was
your insurance.
I reckon they were worth more than $8,000.
yeah, I would have thought so.
But there's a reason.
Good Lord, that is a story.
I must find out who made those curtains. I noticed they've gone now.
I said Jane Austen was from the Lake District, and she's from
she's not
somewhere
the Lake District.
Then the Isle of Wight direction, I think, isn't she?
But was it Jane Austen or was it? I don't know. I think it was Jane Austen. It wouldn't be Anne Boleyn.
I'm just going to type in Jane Austen curtains.
I'd be amazed if you find that these were a particular venue.
There you go. Hang on, I've got something here. Got a hit. Library window curtains.
Yeah,
Austen.
no,
Hang on. Yeah, you will wonder, she said, what has been fixing my eyes so long? But I was looking after some window curtains, which Lady Alicia and Miss Franklard were telling me of last night.
No, I think this is actually the janeausten.co.uk fashionable furnishing site, which is all very romantic sounding, but nothing to do with the original Jane Austen.
You never know. There's a lot of pictures of curtains on this page.
There are.
And it's called janeausten.co.uk. Must be some kind of connection somewhere.
There may well be. I'm looking at the site you're looking at now, and it doesn't look but it does look like she was more likely the person that weaved these or made them than Anne Boleyn. But that would have been a lovely story had Anne Boleyn made them. But there we go.
Just typing in Anne Boleyn curtains.
In terms of insurance, Kev, I think we made the point. Have it.
Yes. Anne Boleyn shower curtains on redbubble.com. That's not it, is it?
No, I don't think so.
Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn's bed curtain.
No, I don't.
Currently held in storage at Glasgow Museum.
After they were taken down from a wedding venue, because some idiot photographer...
some idiot photographer pulled them down.
I'll never forget that look I got. But there we go. Right. Dan O'Reilly, self-publishing question. Hello, Neil. Hello, Kev. No, it was the other way round. It's always Kev and Neil. You know how you get couples, Kev? That they're always... I know we're not that sort of item, but you always get them that way round. It's always Kev and Neil. It's never Neil and Kev. It's like Mum and Dad.
Ant and Dec. You only ever see Ant on the left and Dec on the right.
That's right. But they're far better looking than us, Kev. And slightly richer.
Yeah, true.
So, hi, Kev and Neil. For my final major project in college, I plan to make a photo book. All the photo books I love are hardbacks. So, what would be the company you would recommend to create this book? The project hasn't even started yet, so this is planning ahead. But how much would 20 books cost to make on these websites? I don't know about the amount, what they would cost all put together. But I'm instantly going for Blurb. I've used Blurb for years, but I don't think they're the cheapest. But buy cheap, buy twice, as the phrase goes. Blurb would be one that I would suggest. I know a lot of people have done their self-publishing through Blurb, and it's been very successful. A slight tip when you're using self-publishing companies, I've noticed that sometimes the black and whites that come out of them, not always the black and whites that I would like, and sometimes they feel a bit more like a slight tinge of green and white, or a very slight tinge of blue and white. So I've always warmed up the pictures. So I've taken it as a black and white, and then I've warmed it up slightly, so it has some sort of RGB value to it. And I found that by warming a picture of black and white up slightly, treating it as a warm tone, you end up with what you want rather than a green and white or a blue and white.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Blurb do this, but really...
I'm not suggesting that's just Blurb, by the way.
No. Yeah, but I'm thinking if you're thinking about doing something any kind of serious nature, I'm sure Blurb do this, by the way, then you should get a color profile from them.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
And do your black and whites through the color profile, just to make sure it's accurate. And I would imagine somewhere on the Blurb website you can get something like that. Blurb is probably the go-to one.
Is it XYZ as well? Is that the...
XYZ is the one that Sean Tucker uses.
That's right. And I always think they look superb. Great job.
They do.
I've got the latest one, actually. Good. I've got it's number 5 now, which is a real leap, a definite change in style from his previous ones. Of course, he moved to York from London, so they were bound to change. So you'd go with Blurb, would you? Probably.
I've not really looked into it too much, but yeah, just that would be the first name that comes to my mind to start the research, at least.
I've got a question for you, Kev. Why, with all the amazing pictures that you've made, and I mean this, I'm not just floating your boat or whatever they say. No, blowing smoke up. Anyway, why have you never, or why don't you produce more books yourself, self-published books? Because you've got so much information that you can share, and a plethora of images that you've made from the street. It always seems to me, I wonder why Kev has never self-published a book about, say, street photography, tips, hints.
Well, yeah, photo book, a book of my photos would not sell, put it that way. And then a more of a exercise type book, if you like.
Instructional is what I'm thinking of, Kev.
Instructional. Yeah, I've spoke to several publishers and stuff about things, and the street photography one, they say is too saturated. Way too saturated for there's established names and stuff doing that, which is good and good to them. People are interested in it. The wedding photography one, We got right down the route with a big publishing company, and they backed out in the end. They just said we've done the research, and basically YouTube is killing that kind of marketplace. So that never happened. But yeah, I mean, I think photo books are different. So Sean's photo books, for example, he has got his true 1,000 fans, hasn't he? And they will all buy one.
He calls them the ride or die fans.
Exactly.
We're not likely to see a Mullins book then.
No, I don't think so. No, there's a lot of effort involved, and then it just wouldn't
for no return.
Nobody would want. I can't think people wouldn't buy a photo book, because basically, who would buy a photo book of a couple of street photos and pictures of other people's weddings and my kids, because that's essentially all I take pictures of.
Oh, Kev, you do it down. I think I've seen this. Who would buy a book from Kev of all his street pictures and stuff? I knew. Absolutely. See, everybody would, Kev.
Okay, well, by next week I'll have one then.
Myself and Gemma, we'd be first in the queue, wouldn't we, Gemma? Yes. She's nodding.
You would. I'd make a book every year, or most years. Yeah. She took to crying at them all the time and not looking at them because she gets too sad.
Sad? What about? I don't understand.
For something, it makes you sad. Emotional pictures. They're like too. She says the pictures I take are too emotional.
Well, that's nice though, don't you think? Well, in a emotional as in the one, those amazing pictures you make of your kids. They're so good.
Well, yeah, they're the ones she's referring to, but she can't look at them because she makes them too. No, like now, maybe when maybe in a couple of years' time when they're both proper gits, and she'll look at them, draw moustaches on their faces and stuff.
Maybe. Right. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about this Charles Brooks, who lives now in New Zealand. I mean, honestly, Kev, when you showed me, and I was honest with him as well. I didn't do that thing I've heard interviewers do, which I think, I always think photographers would much rather you be authentic and honest with them. And I did admit during the interview to the fact that you'd introduced me very, very recently in the last few weeks to his work. But when you did, I was absolutely blown away. I mean, these pictures of the inside of instruments, I mean, initially they do look like he's made up a film set, don't they?
Yeah. It's incredible.
They are incredible. And you were right when you said to me, you will never see musical or music pictures like this. You will have never seen them before, and you were absolutely right. So this is my conversation with the extraordinary photographer, Charles Brooks. Charles, you have 2 locations that you call home. Actually, I think it's 3. I've got Auckland and Valdivia. Is it Valdivia or Valdivia?
Valdivia. Yeah, Valdivia is in the south of Chile.
Chile, yeah.
At the northernmost tip of Patagonia, which is the southernmost region.
Well, obviously, I know Auckland, but I not intimately. But the second Valdivia there, I've no knowledge of it at all, except I know, as you say, it's in Chile. And it's one of the province capitals.
Yeah.
I'm confused as to why that there's. Most people have Paris, New York, Auckland. You have Auckland, Chile.
So before I had a career as a full-time photographer, I was a concert musician for a long time. I was a classical cellist. I played with orchestras all around the world, and that's a particularly tough job. It's very, very difficult to win positions and for instance, I think in New Zealand, if I wanted to be a concert cellist, to have one of the few salaried jobs with an orchestra, there's an audition once every maybe 5 to 10 years for one spot. So it's something where if you've got a job, no matter where it is, you just go. So my first job for that was in China. I was in Shenzhen and then in the center of China, and I spent about 7 years there. Really came to love photography again while I was there. It was something I'd done when I was younger, but when you're in the middle of China, around all these karst mountains, these extraordinary places, you can't help but fall back in love with photography. But I'd fallen out of love with the orchestra that I was in. And so it was a matter of doing auditions for anything that was open. And one of the first jobs that I landed was in this place called Valdivia in Chile, a chamber orchestra in Patagonia. And I thought, Well, that sounds kind of cool. So I won the job, accepted the position, and then found myself having to kind of Google where Valdivia really was. Yeah. Flew almost literally halfway around the world. I mean, the two places I was playing were sort of polar opposites, and I found myself in this country that is extraordinary. I developed a deep love for Chile. It is a beautiful, beautiful place. An even deeper love for the people of Chile, one of whom I'm marrying in about 4 days. And she is from Valdivia,
yes,
so that's my connection there.
I knew that bit, and I was hoping that I was facing the romantic part. And actually, it was almost not romantic because you had a COVID scare. The wedding was almost off. Yeah, so if I'm sounding a little bit froggy today, it's because I've got some kind of throat thing going on. And we were, I had the sore throat, and I was sort of debating, do I go in and get a test, knowing that it's almost certain to cancel, half a dozen shoots and my wedding, or do I let it, just see if it gets better in a day? And then my fiance got a headache, and we're like, right, okay, we've got to go get this checked. Wandered into the testing facility here, and fortunately the results were back within about 12 hours, and they said no. You've just got a sore throat. For somebody whose passport is exceptionally well stamped, thanks to music and photography, it must have been difficult over the last couple of years.
It's been extremely tough. I had this career as a cellist for 20 odd years, and I came back to New Zealand in 2016, looked at the possibilities of continuing my performance career here, and looked at the salaries and thought, maybe not. And then I thought, well, photographers, they make a lot of money, surely. There's a touch of sarcasm there for the people not on video. So I went into that, and that was just starting to really gain a lot of traction. I was getting some great clients. I was finding a real niche. So my typical client would be a New Zealand musician, especially classical musicians, who was performing overseas. So lots of sort of opera singers, violinists, pianists, people that were playing at Covent Garden, singing at the Met, all these fantastic places. And they would come back. They wanted something that was a little bit connected to New Zealand to help them stand out when they were in Europe, because, it makes them look a little bit exotic, I guess. And I like to think that maybe they also liked my style of photography. But the problem was sort of twofold. First, they lost all of their jobs because all of the opera houses shut down. And then, of course, we were in lockdown. And so I had to really pivot to try and find something else that I could do. And there were a whole lot of things that sort of came together. And these all have sort of culminated in this particular series. So the first thing I thought, well, I'm in lockdown, I can't move anywhere, but I could probably get some products sent to me. Why don't I try my hand at product photography, which I've since found out is insanely difficult.
I was going to say, how hard could it be? How hard could it be? Really? Just a few bottles and away you go.
Oh yeah, it's a breeze. No, I have so much respect for people who take beautiful photographs of watches and things now. I thought this was all so simple. It's, you stick a thing in front of you, shine a light at it, fine. Until I realized that you're entirely photographing reflections. You're not really photographing the object itself. And that's also what kind of got me into stacking and the process of focus stacking, which I'll get into in a moment, because that's something that's integral to product photography. But I'd wanted to take my own sort of spin on it. So the first thing that I did, I sent out a bunch of emails to a whole bunch of places saying, look, can you just send me stuff? I'll take some photos. I don't know what they'll be like, but maybe you'll like them, maybe not. I wasn't charging for this. And one of the places that sent me some product was a tea manufacturer, and they had this sort of nautical theme going on. And I didn't just want to take a photo of, a box of tea and a nice looking cup with some steam coming off it. I wanted to put a bit of a spin on it, create something with a lot of atmosphere. And I'd had this old model that my dad had built maybe 60 years ago of the Cutty Sark, the clipper.
I know
that's I think still in London.
It's still in London. You're right. Yeah, it's almost the rite of passage for children that go on school trips to London to see the Cutty Sark. Yeah.
So this model's about a foot long, but it's tremendously detailed. And I thought, I wonder if I could do a little bit of photography and sort of Photoshop magic to make that look life size, and make it look like this tea was being offloaded from this sort of 19th century ship. And that took me down a whole rabbit hole of how to sort of deal with perspectives and make small things look big, and that's sort of at the heart of what's going on with a lot of this music photography project that I'm now doing. What I needed to do was get a lens that could get really close to that particular boat, as close as it would be if someone was standing the dock and it were parked there. Yeah. And then photograph it. But you very quickly realize that if you're trying to do that, no matter how much you close up your aperture, it's never going to be all in focus. Yeah. So you have to, sort of ramp the focus. You start close to the lens and take slices and slices and slices of photos, moving that focus every single time until you've captured the entire ship. I then tried focus stacking that first by hand, which I realized was just going to be impossible because it was 100 shots or something. Then in Photoshop, which spent about an hour and a half on it and then said no, which is something I find Photoshop does to me quite a lot. I tend to push it past its limits. And then I found some wonderful software called Helicon Focus, which is specifically designed for focus stacking, and it can deal with very complex items that have lots of sort of intersecting parts, like the rigging of this ship.
So does that take the photograph and then automatically start to stack it for you?
It takes the photographs that you've already shot. Yes. So you have to shoot them in a specific order, typically from closest to farthest away. Export them in a certain way, generally as sort of a high resolution TIFF file. Mm-hmm. It then scans all those photos, and it has a bunch of different settings, but essentially what it's doing is it's looking for bits that are in focus, and it's discarding the rest, and then it's compiling all of that together. It's very, very clever.
Wow.
It does have some limitations. You've got to be careful, for instance, if you can't actually shoot with an aperture that's too wide open, because what happens is that you might be focused on something a little bit further away, but the objects that are close to you are getting so blurry, they start to kind of overlap it. You can see through it like a haze. Yeah. But it means that even the sharp bits of the object that are further away are getting a little bit covered by the blurred out stuff in front. And that's a big problem. It's a very difficult thing to deal with, especially with some of these musical instrument shots where it's very, very tough to get light into those spaces. So we have to work very, very hard to kind of get enough light in there, taking long shots or using very, very powerful strobes. There's a bunch of ways to overcome it. None of them are particularly simple.
So the Cutty Sark, that kind of leads to this architecture and music project, does it? That's what starts it rolling.
Yeah, that sort of started the technique. I had rented a lens for that because the typical macro lenses that I was using, a normal macro lens might be an 85 millimeter or 100 something millimeter lens, and that means that you're actually not that close to the object. You're back a little bit and sort of zoomed in, and that doesn't give you the sort of distortion when it comes to the depth going front to back that you need to make it feel like you were standing right beside something. It might be, all blown up and clear, but you end up with kind of that telephoto compression, which sort of ruins the effect. So I came across a lens by Lauer, this extraordinary probe lens that they make, which looks like a long snorkel. It's maybe a foot or something long.
I've seen it, yeah.
2 centimeters wide.
Yeah.
But that lens has the great ability that it can focus almost right up to its front element. I think that it gets to about 1/4 of a centimeter or something before it can't get any closer. And that lets you get right next to the object. So when you're photographing it, the resulting image feels like you're standing there. And especially once you've got everything in focus from back to front, that whole effect is kind of solidified. To me, I call it the opposite of the tilt shift effect. If you see those tilt shift photos that was so popular over the last few years, usually aerial shots of something where whatever the subject matter is, that's in focus, but it rapidly blurs, the foreground and the background.
Yeah, it looks like the small sort of toy towns, doesn't it?
It tricks your brain into thinking that it's a miniature. And that, I think, is just an effect of the fact that every time we see a macro photo like that, whether it's a bug or whatever, we're used to seeing the background being blurred. So our brain just goes, that's small. Yeah. I don't know whether that's a result of conditioning from seeing so many of these photos, or whether that's really something.
I think we naturally kind of do it with our vision, don't we?
I guess so. Yeah. But then, I had thought, well, if blurriness makes things look small, perhaps sharpness makes things look big.
And so we end up with, because I don't want to confuse the Cutty Sark with the architecture in music. So just so that we're absolutely clear, the Cutty Sark, the picture that you made for the tea project, you essentially built you shot on a jetty, didn't you? So you got the tea on the jetty and you've got the Cutty Sark in the background. Join the two together and you felt like you were there, and it was all very real, and it was a very clever concept, and you can see it on your website, and I'll make a link to it. But then we come to this architecture in music, where we're taking it just not one step forward, we're taking about 100 miles forward. This is now where you're putting this camera, this probe lens, into instruments. Now, I've been introduced to this by my mate Mullins, and when he showed it to me, I have to admit I was creatively and technically completely thrown. I couldn't work out whether this was a film set, exceptionally well shot, or it was the real thing, and you were really or maybe it was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and they'd put you inside an instrument. It's absolutely incredible. It looks like you've been shrink-rayed down.
I mean, that's what I was looking for. When the jump from the Cutty Sark to that was just a sort of natural progression. I thought, well, what else can I make look big? And I looked to what was around me, and of course my cello's sitting in the corner, and I'm very familiar with all of these instruments. I spent most of my life surrounded by them, and so I thought, well, let's take a look inside. Let's see what we can do, because it's something I'd always been curious about. I think in 20 years of being a concert cellist and tens of thousands of hours of practice, I only saw inside my cello twice. It's just something you never get to see, because typically you have to take the lid off, and that means that it's going in for a major repair. That means it's getting major work done. But I knew that certainly with some of the bigger instruments, cellos in particular, there's a big spike that comes out of the bottom, and I thought, well, maybe with this new lens I can get it in there. I couldn't. I had to modify both the lens and then take the cello into the luthiers, because while the spike slips out by itself, you actually need to take out a little bit more, the stuff that holds the spike in. But fortunately on a cello, those parts of the instrument, they're just held in by tension from the strings. So you're not doing anything that would modify the instrument. You're not damaging the instrument in any way. And that's something that is very important to me. I don't want to photograph a cello that, I'm not going to drill holes in something.
Well, that was my question, because I was thinking, how on earth does he get a probe lens into here without making the hole just a little bit larger, which of course would have an effect on the sound of the instrument, wouldn't it?
Of course, yeah. And it's just something you don't want to do. I mean, the first cello that I shot happened to be one that was already in a workshop, and that cello was a Lockie Hill cello. He was an English cello maker from around about 1780. And so it's a very valuable instrument.
Was this
I certainly don't want to go drilling holes in it just for a photograph.
Was this the fellow that got hung?
Yes. Yeah. So sorry, I shouldn't sound so happy when I reply to that. But yeah, it's tragic. He was. This might have been one of his last instruments. They're still trying to date exactly when this instrument was made. But yeah, I think 1792 or something, he was convicted and hung for horse theft. You know, I found this a bit confusing because on a lot of the auction websites that you go on to value instruments like this, they say that he lived till about 1810, but a little bit of research showed that the family had simply said that he'd moved away and sort of covered it up. And you can go and you can read the trial and see what he had to say in his defense. And trials were a little bit different back then. He had about 2 sentences and that was it. He really got to say nothing at all. So that's a tragedy, but it's, you know, it's part of what I like when you're photographing the insides of especially old instruments.
It's history, isn't it? It's stories and
it's history. Yeah. So I can see his tool marks inside this cello. I can see repairs that have been done by other people. You can see mixes of new and old wood because, of course, a cello that's 280 years old, it's had all kinds of accidents and you know, trip-ups along the way, and all kinds of people have been in there and worked on it.
You'll see repairs.
You're seeing this fantastic. You're seeing this record of history just in a single photo, and that's something I particularly love with these instrumental shots.
Well, I mean, I think of a piano that my grandmother gifted me from a house in Enfield that had been bombed during the Blitz, and it had bits done to it to fix it because I think something came through the window. And but I do remember the piano maker's name was I can't remember his first name, but his second name was Borg, and he was a Parisian piano maker. But all the way through the piano, he had little bits. He'd signed bits and written bits, when things had been fixed. And I was wondering whether you'd found that sort of thing, where you might find signatures, where you might find notation in there.
On the violins and cellos, yes, there's always, or usually, a label. Sometimes it's been lost in time. They just peel off eventually. But there's a sort of stamped official signature in there. On a couple of instruments, I've found a sort of signature burnt into the wood where perhaps bits have been repaired, saying restored by so-and-so at such and such a date. That's kind of nice to see because, you know, I don't think that's sort of a message from luthier to luthier, from technician to technician. They're not expecting anybody else to see, you know, their work. It kind of makes me wonder. I part of the reason I came back to New Zealand was I needed a double hip replacement surgery, and I'm wondering whether my titanium hips have a signature on there somewhere for someone else might find when they need upgrading in 30 or 40 years.
A whole new use.
I'll make sure to ask.
A whole new use for the probe lens that you currently have. Let's move on quickly. I am intrigued as to how you. I mean, I get this idea now how the lens is used, but the lighting is a whole new issue, isn't it? How do you get the light into the instruments, into these small areas, without it just becoming just funnels of light that don't really reveal too much? Yeah,
that's exceptionally tricky. It's a matter of using basically a lot of patience, a lot of time, strong modeling lights. So I'm using flash strobes for these. I can't really use continuous light because it's just not strong enough. That particular lens, the widest it can go is f14.
Right. That's
the minimum. And then it dials all the way up to f40. I've never come across a lens that closes that much. And then on top of that, you're shooting inside what are really, really dark spaces. I mean, they're hidden away. Yeah. So typically I'm using I've got a couple of sort of 1,000-watt strobes, and they are on full whack. And I'll spend a lot of time. I'll get those strobes onto a sort of good rig where I can move them very precisely, because just a centimetre here, a centimetre there might be enough just to shine through a crack, to shine through a tiny opening. And of course, tiny movements in those lights, when you're looking at something so small, make enormous changes to the actual scene. So you've really got to spend a lot of time doing that. I'll then have those lights on absolutely full power for most of the shoot. You've also got to be a little bit careful with that as well. I have to shoot slowly, not just for myself to be precise, but because you don't want the lights to get hot close to the instrument, because that could actually damage some of these instruments. And some of them are tremendously valuable. You know, the Fazioli piano that I photographed, that was a $300,000 instrument. So, you know, I'm very honoured that the technicians and the luthiers that I'm working with to get the access right, you know, I'm always working with someone who really knows the inside of these instruments to make sure we're not doing any damage, to make sure that we're doing it right. And I'm honoured that they let me that close and that they let me in. I think perhaps if I weren't a musician and didn't have the experience I had already with that, they wouldn't let me near the place.
And Charles Brooks returns next week. And in our chat, he talks more about his photography inside the instruments, a world within a landscape we've not seen before, including something that surprised me.
Yeah, it's got that sort of red colour that you'd expect from a nebula. Yeah. Red and black and white. This is all stuff that we associate with astrophotography, and that kind of spherical shape, that circular pattern that you see so much in nature.
Can you guess what it is yet? Next week, with Charles Brooks Part 2, we have news as well about this podcast and where we're headed in 2022. Right, back to your questions. Oh, Kev, is the box now fully unloaded?
Sorry, the last thing left is the strap, but I'm not opening that because I never open.
What strap are you going to use?
In the cupboard.
What are you going to use?
I'll use a different strap. Or maybe I won't even have a strap. I don't know. I'll decide. But yes, I don't. Although saying that, I do have a workshop on Friday. I might take this, so I might just put that on for the time being until I decide.
Put a dog lead on it, a nice leather dog lead. There we go. Something very. Oh, talking of which, Kev, I took Barney for his. We went to puppy training classes.
Oh yeah. How'd you go
the other night? Oh dear. Honestly, if you got 15 puppies in one room, okay, if you unleashed an Instagram influencer into that, I'm honestly, I don't know. Everything will be awesome, obviously. It was like cuteness overload, Kev.
Barney, you smashed that. Good boy, Barney.
No, they don't speak like that, Kev. People that run these things are they're quite they're quite forthright. I'm a bit scared of the dog trainers. There's 3 of them. And at the end, I went to step out the door and I can't remember this particular dog trainer's name, but she said, "Stop!" And I was like, what have I done? I said, never let your puppy walk out before you. You are in charge.
She's right, though. We were having this conversation offline, weren't we?
Yeah. Well, that's true. As I looked out the window to see Barney pulling the cover off the barbecue.
Although I wasn't aware about not letting the dog go out the door before you.
No, you should never know. No, it's called hill walking or something. There was no hills involved. We were just walking around. Very funny hall, covered in plastic, just in case dogs do what dogs do. I'm very pleased to say Barney was immaculately behaved in that respect. Other dogs were just, they reminded me of our conversations we've had about Git, where I just thought I'd just drop one there. It'll be nice. Thanks very much. Yeah. You clear it up. I'll be back in half an hour. But it was quite the occasion, Kev. I'm not. I've got 6 more of these to go.
Yeah, it's good to do though.
Yours are all so immaculately trained, though, aren't they?
No, we never did puppy training though. I have to say, although Monty probably could have done with a bit.
Can you imagine Monty? Can you imagine Git at dog training? Yeah. He'd run amok.
Yeah, he'd be like, "All right, lads, my name's Git for a reason."
Yeah.
Show me your bums. I want to sniff.
He would. Let's throw this class down. Right, Chris Leyland is turning very quickly into our hero, isn't he, Kev?
He is indeed.
Yeah, we love Chris because he writes in these. They're always extraordinarily good questions. Sometimes they're long lists of them, and there have been some that have taken quite a long time to get through. So strap yourselves in. Chris has sent another one in. Hello again. Thanks for reading all the questions that I just bounce around my head. Well, you're welcome, Chris. We like them. A couple of questions. Hope you don't mind. There's only 2, Kev. How are we going to survive with only 2? Q1. I still can't get my head around the fact that Kev, going from, not much interest or experience in photography, walks in one day, and tells his wife, "I'm done with my very high-paid job in the city and I'm going to become a wedding photographer. I can understand with other jobs that this isn't unheard of. Other jobs you can do qualifications in the area you want to work in. If you want to become a carpenter, study carpentry, and a side course if your maths isn't very good. But photography is a creative job. It's not just about putting everything on a third of the frame and making sure your histogram is all good. There's emotion involved, among other things, that you really don't pick up from textbooks, in my opinion. There is a question at the end of this, by the way, Kev. Kev must have already been into studying people, or have had a soft side to be able to know when people are going to do certain things, or understand that this is a moment that needs to be recorded. I heard Gemma once say, hang on, has he been round to your house, Chris? Has he been listening? I heard Gemma once say something along the lines of, Kev's pictures, and this is appropriate because of what you were saying a moment ago, Kev's pictures make me cry because I can see what was going on through his mind when he took the photo. My long-winded way of asking this question is, what photographically have either of you done, courses, talks, exhibitions, workshops, or even life experiences that have improved your photography? There's a lot to answer there, Kev. So courses, talks, exhibitions, workshops, or life experiences. What do you want to go for first? Let's go for courses. I've got talking to the dog. I've got Barney outside barking to come in. So I'll let him in while you talk about courses that you've done. I'll let him in.
Right. So
come in, Barney. Come on. In you come.
Courses, I have been on quite a few.
Yep.
Right at the beginning was the Jeff Askoff stuff, which was great.
Was that the very first? Was that the very first one you did?
Yeah.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah.
We met there, didn't we?
Yeah, although I think it might have been the second one that I did that I met you at.
Yeah.
I think I might have done one before that.
Eyes across a crowded classroom. There you were, Kev. I saw you. Woo, it's Kev.
Actually, I'd say I've done lots of courses. I don't think I've done that many. I've been at lots of conferences and stuff like that, and watched other people do things and talk and everything, which is often the best way.
SWPP, of course, you did a lot.
SWPP, a lot of stuff going on there.
Attended probably a lot of the talks because that was one of the benefits. You could go and see what you wanted to, couldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So you could go and watch stuff. But I'd just like to come back to the beginning of that point about this fallacy about this high-paid job in the city.
No, it's true, Kev. Kev is not being... Kev
made me sound like the Wolf of Wall Street.
Kev was right. Yeah, he did. He had Lamborghini Countach and Porsche 911s in every colour for each day of the week.
For a while, I did work in the city, but it was I was in Mayfair, actually, and it wasn't. It was, well, put it this way. I made more money than doing wedding photography, but it certainly wasn't what you might expect. I'm still paying my mortgage, still paying my car rental, still paying for the kids, still paying co-op, still paying for my non-alcoholic wine.
Still paying for the horses. Oh, his star. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, for me, it was just I had to do something. I just had to do something to change.
Was your soul slightly, I don't want to sound too melodramatic, but was it slightly dying inside them with the corporate world?
Yeah, I hated it.
Did you? Oh, I didn't know you hated it. I thought you loved what you did.
No, I didn't mind the actual thing I was doing. The act of doing the stuff was all right. The travel, the trains, the politics, the going to blinking Starbucks, everything. It was just everything. I honestly, I know people still do it, so I don't want to be disparaging about it, but I couldn't do that ever again. I would rather, I don't know. Yeah, I'd rather be.
Is the would you rather game coming up?
No, yeah, I know, but whatever I say is going to be annoying to people who are that. So I'm not going to say anything.
No,
but
it just didn't suit you.
It's very independent. I still have very good friends from that period of my life who are still doing it. They're still on that treadmill every day, and they seem absolutely fine. And they've paid their mortgage off, and they've got Lamborghinis, and they've got a house in Spain, and they've got 6 cows, a horse.
Okay, but so that fallacy aside, a very good. We'll come back to the courses. A point was made there that maybe you were into studying people, or you did have this so-called softer side. You were photographically seeing things before you picked up that article featuring Jeff Askoff that made you take a huge left turn at the traffic lights. Or is that not true either? You had no idea.
Honestly, I don't know. I definitely... Look, the only things that were in my life at the time were, obviously my family. I played a lot of rugby at the time. That was pretty much it. I went to the pub a lot. I had no, there was no artistic, I can't draw. I can't even draw a straight line. There's nothing artistic about me at all. I believe that the fact that I thought this is the way I want to do it, the candid way of doing it, and which meant I didn't go down any formal education. I didn't go to any formal photography courses where they taught you to pose things and all that kind of stuff. I think that helped me because it meant I wasn't shackled by the rules. You must have the light here. You must, the composition must be this and all that kind of stuff. For all intents and purposes, I just became a snapshotter. I'm still am really, as is all people who shoot candid photography. Really, you're reliant on the three elements of a good picture, but you're not guiding any of it. And so I think that was my way of thinking. Yeah, this seems like a much better. It was all based on a better way of life, better work-life balance. It could have been like I often say as a joke, it's a good job I didn't open a page on chiropody because, we would now be on the Toes and Knuckles podcast.
Oh, not sure I'd want to listen to that one. I like the self-derogatory thing of snapshot. I mean, you use snapshot, and we've talked about this before, I know, snapshotographer, as a way of just having a gentle dig back at those that were in the industry, had been there a gazillion years, that had a problem that the new boy on the block had arrived.
Yeah, that's what they referred to it as. And I'm not, that's what it was at the beginning. Definitely, was the case, didn't really know what I was doing, just kind of snapshot, snapshot,
drinks reception.
Snapshot, drinks reception.
Imagine when there's snapshots at a drinks reception, you'd be in trouble. Yeah.
So, but yes, I mean, of course, it's not snapshots now, but it certainly was then. And I don't remember having this kind of thought process, right. But maybe I just thought, well, this is an easy way of doing it. Maybe I did think that. I can't recall. But when I started investigating it more, and I started looking at the work of people like Crash Taylor. Remember Crash Taylor?
Oh, where did Crash Taylor go? The Leicester guy. Well, he wasn't.
Nottingham.
Nottingham. Sorry, not Leicester. Nottingham. Canadian, wasn't he? Was he Canadian?
No, he's from LA.
Was he LA?
Yeah, he's still around. I don't think he shoots weddings.
But he was like a massive star, wasn't he? Crash Taylor. I mean, social media was awash with Crash.
Yeah, it was a nice chap, actually, underneath all of the Americanism, kind of, and I don't say Americanism in a negative way, but careful. No, in terms of, like, he come here from America and brought the whole, social media stuff with him. Right. And it was new, really, in the industry in the UK at that time. So he was very up with how the social media stuff was working in America.
He was certainly ahead of all the competition.
He was huge for a while. But unfortunately, things didn't go quite right for him towards the end. And as far as I'm aware, he's no longer a photographer. He's still around. He's still. I'm sure he's still a nice chap. He was always a nice chap. I got on very well with him. But I used to love his work. Very, very, very different. I used to love his candid element of his work, but his posed stuff, I used to think, wow, my God, this is amazing. I don't know how you'd ever do something like that.
Yeah.
And all these people I just started looking at. And then one day I just thought, I'm just going to do it the way I want to do it. There's no point. I can't go taking pictures on my phone of pictures that Crash Taylor's taken, pictures that, I don't know, Gordon McGowan's taken, pictures that Jeff Askoff have taken. Because that's what, people often do. They often take pictures from other photographers. It's really interesting on Instagram how many people, if you look at the stats on your Instagram pictures,
yes,
download the photo. So, you can add them to collections.
Yes.
You can look at other people's photos and add them to collections.
Yeah.
And I often think, and I'm more than happy for people to use my stuff as reference and inspiration and all that. And that's absolutely 100% fine. But I often think, I wonder why, this one in a lifetime candid picture of, I don't know, whatever it is, kid at a wedding. What are they going to do with that? Are they going to look at that and think, next time I'm going to look for a kid at a wedding? Or are they going to take it and think, I want to analyze how Kev's used the light or composition, which is valid and understandable. Or, or are they going to do what I did right at the very beginning, which is basically have a folder full of pictures that other photographers did, stick them in a book and think they're the types of pictures I must get, which is just not going to happen ever.
No, good point. I'm just looking at the Crash stuff, by the way. So I wanted to make sure that if we said he wasn't, I'm finding it difficult to understand whether he is around still or not, Kev. I'm trying.
He's still on Facebook.
Yeah.
If you're on Facebook, you got to be around, right?
Yeah. I think he's doing some courses still by the looks of it. I don't know. It's very difficult to identify because I had another one where it linked
CrashTaylor.com.
Well,
I've photography courses and photography training.
Yeah, but then you go to, there's one link here that says that it no longer exists, and
You can.
I'm with you. Crash certainly was. He was a bit of a trailblazer, wasn't he?
He was indeed.
He was. So, course, just to return to that question, then, courses, workshops, we'll put them all in, talks, exhibitions. But were there any standout ones for you that you saw, or was it really that you did not want to be tied to anything?
Right at the beginning, no. I just, just kind of went.
What about life experiences then that have improved your? Do you think your life story improved your photography? Because that's the at the end of the question that Chris asked.
No. I honestly don't think that deep into these things.
No, I can tell you.
To be totally honest with you, like I find it intriguing when people have these thoughts, these kind of, I'm
deep thoughts.
Yeah, I'm honoured that people think these things, but literally, I just wanted a way of getting out of the day job, and I thought that this would be easy.
Well, honesty, Kev, that's what it's about. Q2 of the two Qs. Have either of you ever had a moment when you thought you had a great idea for a photographic story or essay, or just a simple photograph, but you realised either straight away or afterwards that you completely missed the mark and it wasn't appropriate, or it personally felt wrong or uncomfortable? I'd like to give you an example of what I'm trying to ask. I thought I had a great idea, says Chris, of taking a series of photographs on Remembrance Sunday. In my little town, it would have been a small but intimate series of some portraits, the laying of the wreaths, the bugle playing, the last post. But being ex-forces myself, I very quickly felt uncomfortable that I'd be taking photographs at a time in a place when I should be remembering past friends and comrades. I took one photo, put the camera away, paid my respects, had a pint, went home. So have you had a moment like that where you felt particularly uncomfortable taking or making images? I can't say I have, but I don't go to those I don't go out to find those stories that would possibly reveal that.
Yeah, I can't say anything comes to my mind too much about it.
I know my good friend Giles had a situation like that when he was making pictures of the 10K fun run that we did for quite a while in Newbury. I think they might still do it. It was called the Bayer 10K, I think it was. It was then when they were sponsoring it. And he was taking some documentary pictures. Somebody had collapsed at the line and he was taking photographs and then instantly thought, what about, am I back doing the pictures that I used to do when I was in the army? Tricky moment. But I can't say, what about it's not humorous, but what about that moment you took the picture of the grandma, that it was her last moment?
Well, yeah, I didn't take a picture after she died. But
what did you do with the very last picture of her life, though?
Gave it to them, of course.
I think she was pointing at you, wasn't she? And that kind of what are you doing, young man? Her last.
Honestly, it is humorous. I'm sorry, a long time has gone past now. It is a humorous story.
That was her last life experience. You, Kev. Looking into your eyes, well, probably more your eyebrows. That was it, Kev. Before she met her maker.
Indeed, yeah. And she'd known me when I was a kid as well, as it turns out, as it transpires.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, she used to live next door to my nana. Anyway, maybe. But I don't know. I think we'd all like to go out and make a life-affirming photo essay. Some people have the get up and go to do that. Other people don't seem to be able to do it. I think, lots of people would wish they could do it. Some people just don't want to bother doing it. It's stuff, isn't it? Stuff gets in the way often.
If you were transported to a pretty tricky area, would you want to make those sort of photo stories anyway?
Not really. I have to say, I'm not the kind of person who wants to be in situations where there's upset and hurt and photograph it. That's not, and I fully concede that in the vast majority of photojournalists' cases, when they end up in these places, that's not what they want to be doing either. It's commissions. It's where their career has taken them. I'd be happy to have anything to take pictures of, really, to be honest with you, that we're allowed to do. Right now. The whole street photography thing is challenging these days in terms of what's happening with society changes. You can't really run a business and do philanthropical type work. I don't think. It's all well and good saying I want to go and do work for a charity or something free, but then you still got to run your business. You still got to pick the kids up from school. You still got to put 90 quid's worth of petrol in the car, haven't you? And it's true. These are the challenges. We'd all love to do it.
And you've now got Star the horse as well. So you've got to keep Star fed. Chris says. He said, hopefully this email's got better grammar than my last. I thought your emails have always had good grammar. But he's now taken your recommendation and downloaded Grammarly, which I have to say, Kev, is brilliant. I love it. I didn't know anything about Grammarly. Tell us about Grammarly again, just in case somebody hadn't heard that, because it's a brilliant...
Grammarly is a web site, an app. There's a free, very good free. You probably don't need more than the free version, where essentially it embarrasses you. You paste in your text from your website or your email or whatever, or you can write it directly in there and it will correct all of the errors, of which there will be a lot.
Once you've signed up, it recognises whatever computer you're on, and it does everything, Word, emails, whole lot. I noticed it even corrected my Facebook stuff.
Yeah, because it is 2022.
All right, Kev, get you. Do you have any? I don't think you have any more questions, do you? We really need you on the Facebook thing, so I'm going to have to find... I'll find another question for us, Kev. We've done self-publishing. Alessandro Lazzarini. This could be another we shall consider question, but I think it's technically doable. Stand by, Kev. This could be the last question in the show today. Why doesn't Fujifilm put the X-pan crop ratio on their X-series cameras? The GFX line has it, and I think the panorama look really is stunning for certain scenes. Sure, one can always crop in post, but having the ability to compose a picture in camera is just different. What do you think? Do you ever shoot with the aspect ratio 6:17 or 65:24?
Yeah, it is in the GFX. I don't know. I mean, maybe they look at the stats of the people, how many people use it, and whether they think that's needed or not. Or you could just stick some sticky tape over your viewfinder at the top and the bottom.
Yeah, well, I know people.
Postbox it.
You could, it's pillar box. Isn't it pillar box?
Pillar box. Postbox.
Same thing.
Same thing, isn't it?
Same thing, different words.
Yeah, I don't know why there's never been in there, because you're right, it is in the GFX, and I agree with you. I quite like it. There's all kinds of things I'd like them to do with the EVF in terms of crop overlays and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd like the Fibonacci spiral.
The what? Oh, yes.
Fibonacci spiral.
Yeah. And I think Kev. Oh no, apart from some, Mike Miller's made some observations, and there's something from Martin, their observations as well. But Kev, that is it. Questions are all done. We have not one more question for the show. It's done, right. Kev. It's done.
You know what that means, people?
Yep. It's off to the pub. Well, should we go to Starbucks instead? Starbucks instead. Well, you know what to do. There's the Facebook post there. You can also send them in. There were 5 ways we identified. The 5th one being that you can actually rock up at Kev's house, come in for a cup of tea and deliver a question personally. That's allowed as well. So we hope to see you next week with some questions, Kev. What do we think?
We do indeed. Please send them in via the website, via Facebook, via email. Click on FujiCast.co.uk. Because we'd like to come back.
Yeah, it'd be
and
nice.
We'll take this. If you don't send us any more questions, we'll take that as a very polite message.
Thanks to our guest Charles Brooks this week. He returns, well, maybe next week for the second part. If you can share the episode on Twitter or Facebook, you're an absolute star. Thank you to our friends who support us on Patreon. See you in the Facebook group for any questions you have about today's show. Play nice, of course. Steve and Pete, they're back. The team is back there, Kev. Steve took a little while out, didn't he? He had several Sony manuals to read, so he was far too busy to be moderating. But I think he's finished all 800 chapters of it. And he's back with Pete, isn't he? So welcome back to Steve and Pete as our mod team.
We just had our very first email via the new website come in. And we have. You will have received it as well. Just this very second.
Oh,
live on air.
We could have featured it. It's too late now. Maybe we will have to come back next week then.
Guess who it's from?
Who's it from? Chris Leyland.
And it starts off with hello again.
Oh, we love you, Chris, honestly. Music from Blue Wednesday, supporting music from the incredible artlist.io. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye, Kev.
Bye.
FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.